Okay, so taking a look at a weak base equilibrium buffer system, I've already mentioned this before, but you would still need to have the conjugate acid-base pairings. So in this case, we would add our weak base and the conjugate acid of that weak base, and again, in equivalent quantities. So remember, when you're adding in that conjugate, the salt that you would use to add this would have to be with an ion that would not interfere with this reaction. So a chlorine or a bromine or an iodine, you need a negative ion that will not interfere with anything. You can even use actually nitrate, ammonium nitrate. You need something that will remain as a spectator ion here. So similar to how we saw the Ka expression, right? We do our products over reactants, we don't include our water. So if we had to rearrange this to solve for hydroxide, notice that our buffer, our hydroxide concentration really is reliant on two factors, right? Our Kb value of the weak base, and again, we have that ratio of weak base over the conjugate acid. So when we're looking at this, it's a similar thing. In this case, if we have equal quantities, this would have been the ratio equal to 1, right? So we're going to look at the same kind of scenarios. So here we have a situation where if you're adding in hydronium, so remember, if you're adding in hydronium, what will happen here is it's going to react with the hydroxide. The hydroxide concentration will go down and it will shift to the right. So meaning you will now have more of your conjugate acid and you'll have less of your weak base. So if you take a look here, this is the initial one where we had our ratio of 1. In this case, we have now more conjugate acid, less conjugate base. It's shifted to the right. So our ratio is now lower. If we were to add in a strong base, let's erase this here and look at it as if it's a strong base. So if we were to add in a strong base, what's happening is your hydroxide concentration is going up, which will cause a shift to the left, meaning there will be more ammonia, so more weak base and less conjugate weak acid. So in this case, it's going to shift to where it will now make more of our reactant and less of our product. So the ratio will then go up, right, because the denominator is decreasing. So very similar to what we had seen before. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the practice problems here. So dealing with weak base buffers. So in each of the following solutions, we have a weak base. And we want to essentially say what compound or what ionic compound or salt would we add in order to make this into a buffer solution. So first of all, the concentrations we would want to be the same, right? We already know that that's the case. So we can have a ratio of 1, our original buffer. There should be a 0 there. And so now when we're looking at this, we need the conjugate acid of this base. So the conjugate acid here would be CH3NH3 plus, and then we would need it with a negative ion. So I'm going to put this here with chlorine. So you could use chlorine, bromine, iodine, nitrate, those would all work. So over here we have N2H4, so the conjugate acid of this would be N2H5, and let's add a bromine here for this particular case. Here we have CH3,2NH, so remember the conjugate acid of this would have an additional hydrogen on it, so we have CH3,2NH2, and then let's put a nitrate on this one. Okay, remember that all of these would end up having like essentially a +1 charge when you're doing your ions on the opposite side. Okay, so here we're writing the 6 net ionic reactions, representing reactions when there's a small amount of strong acid and also a strong amount of strong base is added to each of the above basic solutions. So looking at these 3 here, what would happen if we were to add in an acid or a base? So over here, let's take a look at the first one. We have CH3 and 3 is not going. NH2 plus hydronium. I'm getting a little squishy in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this whole row as just this first one, and I'm going to do the bases section down here. So we're adding in hydronium. So what ends up happening is we're going to have water plus our conjugate acid. Right? So remember, our spectator ion is not included in that. So for the second one, we have our N2H4 plus hydronium gives us water and our conjugate acid. And again, here we'll have our third one, CH3, 2NH plus hydronium, making H2O and our conjugate acid, NH2 plus. Okay, so when we have our bases added, so we have CH3. So what's happening here is the conjugate is reacting with our base, right? The hydrogen is going to move over. That's going to make water and go back to our weak base. Right? So very similar. This is kind of repetitive here, but we have the similar situation for each one. So we have the conjugate acid reacting with hydroxide to make water and our original weak base. C, we have CH3, 2NH2 plus hydroxide, making water and our original weak base, NH. Okay, so that is our weak base practice there. All right, so let's take a look at the Henderson Hasselbach equation. So this concept is part of an extension that's part in this section of the chapter. So in the grade 12 curriculum, we do learn about buffers. We do learn about how it's able to resist the change in addition of a strong acid, a strong base, exactly what we've done up till now. But this is just essentially, to be honest, it's not a very complex calculation here. It's just an alternate way of being able to calculate the pH if we know information about the acid-base conjugate concentration. So remember, when I say when it's acid-base here, this is in reference to the conjugate acid-base pairings. Okay, so we'll take a look at us using that moving forward in other practice questions. So pH is equal to the pKa. So of course this would be the Ka, so the negative log of the Ka for your weak acid. So in this case we're talking about a weak acid and our conjugate base here, right? And then the log of the ratio. So you're going to hear this come up quite a bit, is talking about the capacity of a buffer. So remember that buffers can only resist pH for a certain amount of strong acid or strong base that's added. So essentially, a buffer capacity tells you how much of that strong acid or strong base can it kind of neutralize out or shift to resist that pH before we start to see significant changes. So it may be, let's say, 5 milliliters for some acids, or maybe we can add in 50 milliliters. It depends on what the capacity is for that particular buffer. So a more concentrated or high capacity buffer will experience less of a pH change when adding a strong acid or base. So this should kind of make sense. Let's go back to, let's go back to something like this. So the more concentration you have of the reactant and product side, so the base and its conjugate or vice versa, the more this will be able to resist a change. So that actually goes back to, I'm going to flip back for a second. Remember how there was this question about which one of these would be able to resist a pH change better? It has to do with the amount of moles that are in that solution. So the higher the concentration you have, the higher the capacity is for the pH change. So meaning the pH will not change as easily than if you had a lower concentration. Like the higher the concentration is, the more it's able to resist that change. So if you have a less concentrated or a lower capacity buffer, it's going to experience bigger pH changes much more easily. So when we have a strong acid or strong base that's added, what we would have to consider here is the new ratio. So what would happen there, and we already looked at calculations before, but you'd have to recalculate to see what the ratio would be, and that would lead basically to a new hydronium or hydroxide value. So how do we make our buffer? So the Henderson Hasselbach equation that we saw before, which was this here, essentially talks about the ratio between the weak acid and the conjugate base and its pKa value. Now, what we consider to be an effective buffer, so meaning a buffer that has a pretty good range that it can withstand the pH change, is if this ratio is anywhere between 10 and 0.1. So I'll give you an example. So the ones that we were doing before we saw any changes, if you remember, we always had them like they started off as being equal. So let's say we had 0.1 moles per liter of both. That means that our ratio here would be the number 1. Okay, so that's great because it's actually right in between these two. So anywhere where you have your ratio that would be between 10 and 0.1 is considered to be what we have an effective buffer. So meaning if your ratio is too far off, so meaning you have too much of one or the other, either the acid or the base, or too little of one or the other, you're not going to have a resistance, you're not going to be able to resist the pH change as easily. Okay, so the whole goal of a buffer is we want to be able to resist the change. So let's take a look at our last set of practice problems. So here we have, rank the following 4 buffer solutions in order from lowest to highest capacity. Okay, so when we're looking at the capacity, remember that the range is from 0 to 1. So the highest capacity that you can have is actually directly in the middle where your ratio is a 1, okay? So I guess in a perfect scenario, the best buffer you can have is when you have equal quantities of the reactant and product, so your acid and your base value. So what we would have to do here is we essentially have to determine what the ratio would be for each of these 4 and then rank them based on that. So for A, right, we would have our base over our acid, which would give us 0.5 divided by 0.48. This would be 1.042. So remember, don't worry about sig figs or anything here. We're just essentially taking a look so we can rank these properly. So here we have our base of 0.060 over 0.040. 6 divided by 0.04. So this is 1.5. Our C is exactly 1 because they are equal quantities. So we can kind of see there that that's going to be our highest capacity right away. And then for D, we have 0.095, our base over our acid. So that is 5 divided by 0.1, 0.95. So we have here C. Our next strongest is going to be A, right? It's a little bit closer. Then D, and our weakest is B because it's a 0.5 off. So all of them are effective buffers, but we can still rank their capacities based on essentially how close are they to the ratio of being 1. Okay, so we do have 2 more example problems to work through in our next video.